Louisville, national champions, 1980.
Cardinals have won the national championship. 75th NCAA college basketball champions.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Third Banner Pod. I'm Ash, your host for the night. We've also got Kyle, Pat, and Ross. Very special edition. I know things are looking bleak in Incarnation after two losses again with basketball.
Or are they?
Cardinal baseball off to a terrible start. So things are not so rosy red, but how are you guys doing tonight?
I don't know if they're looking. I don't know. Sometimes you got to go through the rough stuff to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm doing well. How about you guys?
I'm doing great. Looking forward still. Just counting down the days till I'm back in the Ville, baby.
Right on,
man. Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
I'm still having a rough time from my loss on Friday. So.
Oh yeah. I wasn't even going to bring up the fact that I am now the only person in the history of human civilization to win Louisville Jeopardy, and now I am the only person in the history of human civilization to win Louisville Wheel of Fortune. And I wish I could be on there for Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? But you know what? I'm gonna let somebody else take a W. I think that's a good
honor mid.
Let somebody else win.
Yeah, man, I don't even know. It definitely hasn't been a good week for U of L athletics, but the day's always darkest before the light, or whatever the hell that saying is. So the day
is always darkest.
Yeah,
now you got me confused.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not good with those old wives' tales and little sayings like that. I always butcher the hell out of them. So, but no, I mean, we'll see what happens. We got some things to definitely talk about tonight as far as last night's game. We're gonna
already talking about people sucking each other's toes in the chat.
Yeah,
it's
I don't
gonna
know
be
what's going on
night.
with the chat.
How are you gonna start off that hot right off the bat? You got to ease into that kind of.
No hot shit. Yeah. Oh, hi in here.
And since we've been on the air, basketball has suffered 2 20-plus point losses, and it looks like we lost Ross. So the rest of us, I don't even think wanted to touch on basketball and on the games anyway.
Ross must have AT&T.
His technical difficulties. But
man, it's a solar flares. It's solar flares
over the weekend, and then again last night. So. Ross, take it away. What'd you think of the basketball? The two losses since we've been on last.
I really ain't got to say much about the loss 2 games ago. I do have something to share about last night's game. You look at last night. You got a coach like Micah Shrewsbury that's in his first year, and I'm just going to come out hot with it. Like, we were the more talented team at almost every position on the starting 5. And then when you went to the bench, we're the more talented team. But you look at, you've got a team in Notre Dame that has implemented a scheme and a system, both offensive and defensively, and they have an identity. And, you look at on our side, and it's like, yeah, you could point to some things that have been better, but we have glaring holes, and a well-coached team like Notre Dame and Micah Shrewsbury exposed every single one of those deficiencies last night and made us look stupid. Okay, so there's no question we are the very bottom of the ACC at this point. And there's really no way that we're going to not finish last now at this point. So there's nothing to be said. I mean, like this is about rock bottom. You lost at home by 22 points to a mid Notre Dame team. And once again, like in every game, you have you have scouts, and you should say, oh, well, we've got Shrewsbury, this freshman. He's going to pull and shoot if he's open. So you don't want to leave him open. But just like we do every game, we leave their best scorers and best sharpshooters wide open, and it happens all game. And they exploited the hell out of us, and they not only exploited it, like they found ways to get those guys open shots all night, and there was no adjustment. There was no answer, and it's just there's nothing else to say. I mean, that was rock bottom last night. It's one thing to go and lose at Notre Dame when you got like T. Will and Earl Clark and David Pageant, 2008, 2009, whatever that was. You go up to Notre Dame and they hit like 17 of 26 threes.
They had Herringody, yeah.
But I don't even know if I can't even remember if Herringody was on that team, but they had that
Earl Clark postered Herringody.
They had that McElharney or whatever his name was shooting behind the three, and they had another dude too, and they just lit us up. And that was not what last night was. I mean, yeah, what's his name? Shrewsbury hit 6 open last night, but it's not like the game I'm talking about. Like those dudes were like pulling up off the dribble and making contested shots back in 2008. These were wide open. There's never an adjustment, and we're not getting better. Okay. And I think we all finally saw that last night. I think that was the polarizing thing that finally brought all of U of L fan base together last night. Is we knew that us and Notre Dame all season were going to be the bottom of the conference, and they came into your house and took your cookies and whooped the hell out of us by 22 points.
Well, some of my observations, I mean, it was obvious that they scouted us very well from the start. What have we been able to do? I mean, we like to run into the lane and throw up junk and pray we get fouled. We do that a lot. I call it the bulldozer offense. That started at UK, really. I mean, Calipari did it a lot, but the Harrison twins made a living out of doing that. And
it was bullshit.
They sagged the lane. They contested. They dared people like Tyler, for example, to shoot the three instead of beating them off the dribble, because he's so fast. He can do that to anybody. And then if you close out on him, you leave it big. He hands it off to the big. Big has a dunk. Well, they made sure that they sagged in the lane, didn't allow that to happen. But the big thing they did was they double teamed the block, whether it was Brandon Huntley Hatfield or somebody else on the block.
Caleb Glenn.
They knew we like to initiate offense from the block a lot of times. Normally, it's just Brandon Huntley Hatfield overpowering his man, and he's done really well at that. That's the one thing I give this staff a lot of credit for, is his development. That does not go unnoticed, and that was obviously something that I wondered when somebody would at least try something to take him out of the game. It just seemed like nobody really made much of an effort to do that before last night. They did it, but it wasn't even just Brandon Huntley Hatfield. Trey White caught it over on the block. There came that double team. What they had realized was that we initiate a lot of offense from that spot on the court. So they dared us to make the hard pass across the court, because they would fade over to the top of the key, because that's where you're going to look first when you're double teamed, and they would also fade over to the baseline on your side. So if you're on the strong side baseline, your defenders are fading both of those directions. You were forced to throw it usually over to the weak side, the opposite
cross
side,
court,
which is you're vulnerable to turn the ball over when that happens.
And we're a bad passing team. Yep.
Well, it's also easier to recover, when a pass goes that far across the court.
Now, we did make an adjustment on offense. I do want to point out, on offense, we made the adjustment, which the adjustment that we made was that we started having Brandon Huntley Hatfield set a screen on that block, and having the ball handler, whoever it may be, go to that block. And when they went to double team like they were, he would roll off of the pick into the middle of the court. And so, especially at the beginning of the second half, you saw a lot of Brandon Huntley Hatfield getting that ISO, taking advantage of it. Sky Clark obviously played a really good game on offense, But at the end of the day,
Kyle, can I say something though? Though? Even like what you're talking about, how we countered when Notre Dame was hedging that screen up at the top of the key, and then we were rolling Huntley Hatfield. Like, it was a fugazi. Like, when you go back and you watch that game, and I was noticing as it happened live, like, you go back and watch, he's literally, it's the same bulldozer mentality that you were talking about. It was just like, we're just going to go, we're going to go head down.
They tried to take that away completely. And what we did was we set that play up to where he could do that one-on-one.
We tried to find other ways to do our only offense. And it's a fugazi. I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to what I try to do is point out hey, I did see some adjustments. That way when people, because the one that's going to comment that we've got.
Well, I mean, we ain't got to worry about that.
He's going to not just him, but people think, oh, you guys don't watch the games. You just want to criticize. I did notice those things. So now that I've gotten those things out of the way, the defense, it's just, it's okay, first off, Shrewsbury runs a great offense, and it's one of the reasons I know he's struggling this year, but he also has a roster that at Notre Dame is very challenging. He has a lot of recruiting challenges there. I don't know why he took that job, if I'm being completely honest. In the NIL era, transfer portal, a lot more difficult to get guys there in other places. But his offense is still a thing of beauty, despite the fact that he doesn't really have the players to line with it. It's always four guys moving without the ball. Somebody has the ball. You have guys setting picks. You have guys that are rolling. You have guys that are dropping back. I mean, and then you have guys running around the baseline. And what they're all doing is creating space. So either the ball handler now has space to move up, and then if you come to him, you have to leave somewhere. There's space there. Another guy comes up to the space, and you either pass it or they don't converge on you, and you created your own space. You take the open shot. I don't know all the terminology of that. I just know there's four guys without the ball moving around at all times in that offense. It's another reason I've been really critical of Muss lately, because he's got the old Chris Mack offense this year. We hear a lot about Muss being a lead candidate. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. That could just be agents talking. But the more I watch him, the more it reminds me of Chris Mack, where four guys just watch a guy dribble a basketball until there's 4 seconds left on a shot clock, and then he heave a three. Well, Notre Dame didn't do that last night. And here's the thing, our defense stinks. And so you could tell we did not scout Notre Dame for what they do well, which is create space with their shooters. All year they've been able to be stopped because they don't have the talent Michael Shrewsbury really wants there. And those coaches are able to exploit the weaknesses they have. But they just ran their offense any way they wanted against us because we didn't do anything scouting-wise. You could tell our guys, and maybe we did, but if we did, we didn't get our players on the same page to where they understood the scouting report, because all of their shooters were put in position to be open. We should have been able to see the things that you do to create those open shots with those shooters, and we just failed to do it. And it lasted the entire game. And somebody can argue, well, at the end they pulled away by a lot, but I think we were leading for a little bit at the very, very beginning. I don't even remember. They were winning the whole game pretty much. The whole game. So it was complete domination.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I'm going to sum it up by saying this, and then I'll be done. It'll take me just about 20 more seconds. There were still some people on the page of Notre Dame or of Kenny Payne getting year 3, the injuries. We've seen a little bit of progress. Okay, we get both of our guards back. One of them had a hell of a game on offense. They were both back. They were both healthy. Didn't matter. We got our asses kicked by the second worst team in the ACC on our home court. Second road win that they've had the entire season. It's over. We're all on the same page. It's done. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Yeah, you guys pretty much summed most of it up. I thought I'm impressed by Shrewsbury's scouting. I think more so than any coach, because I think Notre Dame's one of the least talented teams we've played.
Correct.
all year.
Yeah.
I think more so than any coach, and we shouldn't be hard to scout, but he knew exactly what we wanted to run, and he knew exactly how he was going to attack it, both offensively and defensively.
Yep.
I thought, when the post is doubled, some of that's on the big man. He's got to make a quick decision, but there was, and I like BH. I like Brandon Huntley Hatfield. So, I'm a little bit biased. He's probably my favorite player, but there was no quick decision to make. There was nobody presenting themselves to come get the ball. You've got a backdoor cut against that stuff. You've got to move. Nobody's moving without the ball when he was doubled. And I do think, like you said, Kyle, there was that adjustment made, and then they adjusted back, and we didn't answer back. I think, these last two games, I think have finally shown the holdouts in our fan base that this just isn't going to work. It's unfortunate. We wish it would have, but it's not going to work. There's really no argument for a year 3 at this point.
No, that game did it. That's one positive that came out of that game, Pat. Is that there's just nothing. There was nothing more that was able to be argued. There's no more debating. Like, I didn't see anybody saying, well, if we'd have had this or that. Like, no, not against that team, not on our home court, not when they've struggled all season on the road just as much as we have. We both have one road win. And they didn't just beat us, they stomped us. They dominated us from start to finish. And then at the very end, they just pulled away completely. That was it. And to win the amount of opportunities, I think everybody also sees, hey, guess who we get next? We get Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium. We're losing that one. So let's just say, hypothetically, you get 3 home games against not good teams to end the year. You could win all 3. That gets you to 11 wins on the season. You win one in the NCAA tournament. NCAA, that's a joke. In the ACC tournament. You win one in the ACC tournament. Okay, that gets you to 12 wins. Not good enough. That's best case scenario.
And I got to pause real quick. Desmond just said in the chat, I'm numb to losing. And that's exactly the number one reason why things have to change around here.
Yeah.
For any of us to say we're numb to losing at this point, that's a problem.
That's apathy. That's apathy. That's worse than hate. Apathy is the killer of all things.
Yeah.
I do think we're heading in the right direction as far as like things going on, leadership setting a foundation for things, in the event of a change, which appears to be inevitable. I think the puzzle pieces are being put into place to make that change. And, it's going to be a long couple of weeks. I think we've been talking about coaching searches for 2-3 weeks now, like hardcore talking about it. And we were touching on it. We've been touching on and off. I think every platform has all season. And so to finally get to this point where we're talking about all day, every day, it's going to be really, I'm just dying to see what happens. It's almost like, when the Game of Thrones book that George R.R. Martin, The Wind's a Winner.
That thing ain't ever coming out.
It ain't ever coming out, is it? We've been waiting for years. That's what it feels like right now. But we're almost there, guys. It's going to be a long 3 weeks. It'll feel like 3 years, but,
Well, and I want to say, like, because you hit on it, the leadership and stuff. I think, looking back on this, and I think me and you were big proponents of getting rid of Kenny, in December and stuff. Yeah. And I'm not saying that shouldn't have happened looking back on it, but I do appreciate how this from then on, how this has been handled. It's kind of like, hey, Hurd's like, listen, he's going to finish out the season. I'm not going to sit here and badmouth him and everything like that. We're going to let him finish out the season. We'll look at what it looks like. And he knew what it was going to look like. And then we'll go from there. And we've got some people, close to the program that sound like they're going to help with the divorce and make it a little bit more congenial. So I like the way this is being handled. it's a long process, but I think we're doing it the right way, which is big in a situation where you've got a former player as your coach. So
yeah, there's a lot of you're right, Pat. There's a lot of politics involved there, and there's an optics. Well, I think that's what you're alluding to. There's an optics situation there when you're talking about an AD. This is Josh Hurd's job now. He is the permanent compared to when Kenny was hired before he was interim. And there's an optics situation to where you're trying to be appealing to the next candidate. And, if you were, I know all of us wanted it and a lot of us were hearing it. And I think there were legitimate rumors and buzz about making that move over the holiday break. But if you had made that move and, you got Kenny Payne being a former player, and not even full 2 seasons through his job here, it would raise some eyebrows to the next candidate and their agent as far as the optics. Like, well, if they'll get rid of a guy like that quick, what does that say about somebody like me or from the agent standpoint, somebody like my client? So I think that is, I think you're right. I think that it's a situation where it pays to endure and it's going to work out for us. I mean, we're here. There's no going back. So, I mean, we are where we are. So, I think it'll be. I think Josh Hurd deserves some credit and having foresight to handle it the way that he's handled it.
Yeah, and I
and there's
think
also people that you never know who you could get the benefit of at the end of the season that wouldn't have liked it if you would have made that firing mid-season. You never know who might be willing to help,
right,
if you do it the right way, according to and you may need their help to get through this. So that's just something to consider.
Well, and what I was going to say is, like, looking at the schedule, I thought last week, I thought that the game that we had last night was a very winnable game, and I thought that I expected us to beat Notre Dame, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so the manner in which we lost, to me, is just so bad that I think that 2 consecutive losses like that just pretty well put it into perspective as to where we are. And I think we've all kind of accepted, Card Nation's kind of accepted what's going to transpire. So I think that one of the things that was suggested for a topic tonight by Kyle, and it was a really cool idea, in my opinion, was to kind of reflect on the Kenny Payne tenure and kind of look at, those moments that we've really all scratched our head on. And if you guys are ready, I'd like to go ahead and dive in on those, the top 20 lists that Kyle's put together. That way we can go ahead and unveil that and show you guys what the top 20 list of the Kenny Payne blunders of his era are.
So basically, just explain it real quick. We're going to go through 20 through 11 tonight because we were looking at the time and I thought, man, if we go through all 20 tonight, which was the original plan, don't know if we would have had any time to recap the game and the fan base thoughts. So we'll go through 20 through 11 tonight, 20 being the least, in my opinion. Now, people can disagree. 20 being, in my opinion, the least severe blunder. Number 1, which will be next week, the most severe blunder. So it's basically, how did we get where we are today? What are some of the things that led to that? There's probably a lot more than 20 things. And like I said, some people will say, well, why didn't you bring up this or that? But we're going to go from 20 to 11 tonight. So just because you don't see it tonight does not mean it's not on there. But I think some of these things you'll be like, man, I forgot all about that because it's been a long year and a half. Yeah. I forgot about some of them until we
I do. And
I did too. I did too.
And so to start it off at number 20, because we're not going to start at the top of the list. We're going to start at the bottom here and work our way up. and just do the top, 11 through 20 today. But at number 20 comes in on the list. His comments about beating UK by 1 point. Take it away, Kyle. What'd you think of this?
So, yeah, he said this multiple times, but the quote here, which was one of them, was, "I know he wants to beat me down," talking about Cal, "but I want to win the game by 1. And some people say this was never a big deal, but let me explain why I thought it was. It's the mindset. It's the mindset of, I really don't want to play this game, but since I have to, I want to win it, but I don't want to beat them too bad. Cal's my buddy." That's the impression I always got from that quote, was like, I just want to do just enough to win, which that is not the mindset you can have going into a heated rivalry. And he is correct about Cal. I know he wants to beat me down. That is correct, because he can be best friends with you. He doesn't. He wants to beat you down in that game, which is exactly what happened. And it doesn't mean a guy. Well, the counter argument's going to be Rick Pitino hated Cal in the UK after everything that happened, and he didn't win very much against him. Fine, I understand that, but he at least stood a fighting chance at times with the right mentality. Like, you've already lost that game before it starts. If your mentality is, since we have to play this game, I guess I'll just try to win it and get by, while the other guy wants to crush you because you're the rival. So that's the mindset I felt like it was. So I felt like we never stood a chance in that game. So you guys, what do you guys think?
Well, I think the mindset is one thing, and I completely agree with you there. For me, when I heard that quote, it was like, read the room, dude. We we're coming off a bad time for our program. We haven't won an NCAA tournament game, and when Kenny was hired in 5 years.
We appreciate you, Dez.
And we had, even through our good years, we had constantly been Kentucky's whipping boys.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a guy in here who's supposed to be a former Louisville player, and yes, he did coach at Kentucky, but
preferably play fast, Larry.
He should have Louisville pride and say, yeah, one of my main goals here is I want to wipe the floor with the Kentucky Wildcats. And you don't have to say it like that, but you got to say something more than I want to win the game, but only by 1. Dude, read the room. You're coming into a job, and this was said, I think, before the season started. Like you said, Kyle, it was said many times, but this was said before the season started. You come into a job and you're trying to rile up your fan base, and you say something like that, you're starting off on the wrong foot, man.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to throw it to Ross next and let myself finish up last, but we'll go ahead and I'll just give my thoughts and we'll proceed on to number 19. My thing is, like, to me, this is just a very, I think, it's just the important thing is to win. Yeah. But like, we want somebody more cutthroat than that. And I think that's what everybody else is kind of saying too. And so, like, to me, it just is like I don't know, it's just kind of a cop-out way of putting it. And it just doesn't come across as a cutthroat enough type of personality. And I just can't take that when it comes to our arch rival games. Right. And Ross, now that you're back on, could you just go ahead and give your thoughts on this, on number 20 here, and then I'll proceed to the next one on the list.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I mean, it's just not. It's not a winner's mentality when you're talking about a rivalry. It's something that had UK fans just salivating and licking their chops. I mean, to hear, it's like, and I know this isn't what Kenny wanted or what he was trying to say, but like, you hear a coach say that on the opposite sideline from you, you're like, oh, that's a beta mentality, man. That is like, we've got this. We've got this in the bag.
Right.
So,
and then moving along to number 19, it might be number 19 on our top 20 list, but I think it might still be Kyle's favorite of the 20. So I'll proceed right along to the whiteboard saga.
The whiteboard saga. Now, there's some people
was
that
pretty
may
fun.
not either they don't remember this or maybe they weren't aware of this. So let me be very clear. This is very, very soon after Kenny Payne was hired. We're wondering who he's recruiting. We're hearing all these names are lined up. And the next thing you know, I think this was on Nolan's Twitter, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody put this picture, one of the staff members put this picture on Twitter, and somebody noticed right off the bat, oh my gosh, there's names of recruits on this whiteboard. And so the funny part about it, though, is Caleb Glenn's name. If you may not be able to tell. We zoomed in as much as we can, but it's spelled Caleb Green. There it is. It's zoomed in a little bit. It's Caleb Green, and he had already been committed. So he's a committed player. And this is during a time period where we're not hearing much about the coaches interacting with the current team and the current prospects. We're all kind of wondering, like, what the hell's going on? He's been in New York for a while, and we're just not hearing a lot. This whiteboard comes out around that time. I don't want to mix my timelines up. It may have been a little bit after that time, but it was early on. It was early. The first off season.
It was during the summer.
And if you look at these names,
it got people excited, man. This whiteboard got people pumped.
It got people hyped. So then, of course, you've got the people on the admin on the message boards deleting it. You got people saying, hey, don't, take that off of there. And it was just it just showed disorganization, like right off the bat, like how kind of careless, lack of attention to detail, especially with the spelling of Caleb Glenn's name. But let's look at the names on here. DJ Wagner. Grandpa's on the roster or on the staff in his own little university affiliated role. Didn't matter. Caleb Foster. How many times did we hear that we were going to poach Caleb Foster from Duke? Never happened. And Gigi Jackson. I don't think he was ever realistic.
Mackenzie and Baco.
Gigi ended up
was another one. He ended up decommitting from Duke, and then we heard all about it. And what happened? Well, he didn't come here, so. Yeah, It was a fail across the board on the whiteboard saga, but it's probably the funniest one in my opinion. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the whiteboard saga.
Man,
I learned more. I learned more about our recruiting from one picture than I have in 2 years on Jody Demling's website. So,
dang.
Okay. Kyle,
we are live, and people just said we do not rehearse this.
But
we
are
live,
right and left. We cannot control what people say.
Well, listen, and I listen. Jody does a good job on his website. It's not all his fault that there's
walk it back. That's good.
But I learned a lot more from this whiteboard than I have in 2 years, man, and. Unfortunately, everything I learned from this whiteboard did not come true. There is not one other than the misspelled name on there.
Caleb Green never came here either.
There's not one.
Caleb Green never made it here.
I tried to look up Caleb Green 247, and he didn't come up. Not that year.
Hey, truth be told, there's got to be a Caleb Green somewhere playing basketball that year, right? There has to be.
I'm sure.
I mean, has
somewhere.
to be.
Yeah,
I
mean, hey, listen, Caleb Green might have been as well known as the guy we kicked off the team earlier this year. So, Coron Davis, Caleb Green, they probably both had the same recruiting ranking. So,
teaser.
I know. I didn't want to. That's probably in the top 10. So,
is it? I don't know.
Who knows?
Stay tuned to find out. What do you think, Rob? What was your takeaways on the whiteboard?
I mean, out of all those names that I thought were realistic when you were going back and watching and everything, I mean, DJ Wagner and Mackenzie and Baco were the two that really, really stood out to me. And I'm going to, and this is not to elude on some other topics, but potentially in the top 20. But I give Nolan a lot of I give him a lot of grace. And the reason is that I think Nolan was the setup guy when you look back in our staff's approach. I think you have guys like Justin Perez and his father and his family running CAA. And, those were the deal makers. Nolan was the guy that got us in the door and got those players to campus and basically got the informal commitment done. And then I think on the back end, whether it was Kenny and our NIL or just our NIL or Kenny, I mean, the deals, none of the deals were closed. Like, no one got those kids here. And when they got here, there was very positive buzz around that situation. Now, DJ Wagner, I don't think he ever made it here, but that's not really here nor there because, right, I mean, he knows everything about this program inside and out with, his grandfather being here and being a part of it. But I think Nolan did a damn good job of getting players here and fulfilling his role in the recruiting aspects. I just don't think that we had everything in place to close all these deals. And I think in that situation, Nolan was left hanging out to dry, so to speak. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and I think, Ross, to expand on that, I think you ask the majority of the head coaches in the country, and they'll tell you they have to be the closer in a recruitment. That's the head coach's job. The assistant coaches get you the connections. They get you in the door. They put the person on the platter. The head coach has to close it. And now, in today's NIL era, the head coach and the NIL have to close it. But the head coach is the one that has to seal the deal.
And for me, like looking back on, at the time we all kind of laughed and joked and made fun of the situation, but looking back on it now, to me, this should have been an even bigger red flag than any of us even considered at the time, because every head coach that I've been around that was pretty good or better has been very buttoned up when it comes to things like just having your crap together, as far as like not having everything be a mess and having a good attention to detail, and just having all that kind of thing being real buttoned up, and not having things being out a mess. And like, what I mean by a mess is like when you look at this board and you've got players' names spelled wrong and completely wrong last names, to me, that's not good attention to detail. And even if they knew who they were talking about when they wrote the name up there, still not knowing how to spell it or even having a wrong complete name is just a horrible lack of preparation, lack of attention to detail, and it really just foreshadowed what was to come in the actual game situations, in my opinion.
And I'll say too, like, you go talk to these coaches that talk the talk and walk the walk as a head coach. If you tell them, hey, do you remember me? They'll be able to, like, on the spot, be able to tell you, oh yeah, like we talked at the so-and-so mall, and like they recall conversations. Like these guys, the guys that are made for the part in this situation, they don't make gaffes like that when it comes to relationships and names. Like they remember faces and they remember names and they can recall all, like, every, like, interpersonal communication that you've had with that person. Like that, they're extremely talented in that situation. Like, if he's out of coaching now, but like Jim Boeheim was like known for it. Like, he'd be able to like just meet a person one time and then that person would meet him like 10 years later and just be like, oh yeah, I remember that conversation. And whether he was BSing or not, I just highly doubt it. Like, those reputations follow people, and Rick was one of those. I think Cronin's one of those, for sure. And there's a certain personality that excels at a very top level in the sport, and like you said, the lack of attention to detail, it's not what you want to see somebody leading your program.
Well, and the thing of it is not only was there a lack of attention to detail with regard to the names, but then not having the foresight to realize that it's a bad idea to have a picture taken in front of the board and then posted to social media, regardless of who posted it to social media, but to allow that picture to be taken right there. It's just all around a bad look. And it kind of contradicts another thing in our top 20 that Kyle put together for us tonight that we'll get to here in a little bit, because we leaked our whole recruiting list right here. So, we'll get to that in a little bit, but moving right along, we're going to move up to number 18 now. And number 18 on our list is the Rock Nation connection. Go ahead and take it away, Kyle.
Yeah, so some people may not remember the Rock Nation connection. So Rock Nation, Jay-Z connection. We were told before Kenny Payne got hired, we were going to have celebrities at our games, and that we were going to be the new IT program, kind of like how UK was when Cal first got there. And then we bring on Justin Perez, Rock Nation. So he was supposed to be this guy who they brought in. He was going to help.
It's his family's business.
Yeah, his title was Director of Men's Basketball Administration, and he was supposed to just strengthen some connections. I think use some of those Rock Nation connections to enhance our product and to get connections that we may not have otherwise. You'll see what he was hired. It looks like August 4th, 2022. I remember he had to pass his bar and get his, get licenses or however they do it as an attorney. He had to go pass his bar exam. August 4th, 2022, he's hired. Have we heard anything about Justin Perez since then? Have we heard anything about Rock Nation since? Like, I actually was hyped about this. I actually, I wasn't hyped about very much in the Kenny Payne era. I've been skeptical from the start. I admit that. I tried to find little morsels of information to get hyped about. This was one of the little morsels, and then it just never went anywhere. It's like we hear about Rock Nation, Justin Perez. We're going to have these connections with Jay-Z. Does Jay-Z even know we exist?
Probably not. Well, and
it's your boy.
And even more importantly, from a basketball standpoint, we're going to have connections to a big-time agency, which, players can be like, hey, that's a successful agency. They're the son of the empires on the staff. This could be a connection. Didn't happen. Nothing happened from it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So, like, where I was when I heard that we had this connection, right? I mean, it's the Perez family's business. It's their business, and it's one of the things that we were sold on as far as being a positive when Kenny was going to come here, and being, it's one of those things that we were supposed to overlook the red flags because getting talent is 9/10 of the situation, right? So, the fact of the matter is that what you're saying, Kyle, like, we heard he was like getting that bar exam and getting like that license, and then there was nothing else. If it had been successful, it would have been like everything we heard as far as Worldwide West helping UK, back in the early aughts, when Cal had just first got to UK. Like, it should have been a situation like that, and it just never transpired. It never blossomed. It never was a thing, not once. And if it had been, we would have heard Justin Perez's name a whole hell of a lot more. And it's just it's not the case.
And the key to all this wasn't some like fantasy where the fans were like, oh gosh, this guy is connected to Rock Nation. This is going to happen. No, this was something that was told and kind of shoved down our throats from media
Absolutely.
members.
Yes.
That were like, hey, this is a big deal. This is a huge hire. This is like no other director of men's basketball operations.
It's a very big
This is
deal.
going to open doors. And it did not open the tiniest door.
Yeah. Not at all. Nothing. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
No talk.
And
No nothing.
I don't have anything else to add to what you guys have said. I think you guys have summed this one up pretty well.
Okay.
So we'll just skip right along to number 17, which happens to be one of my favorite moments on this list, just because of the absurdity of it all. And number 17, we have Tyler's tights.
We got to see the video.
I'll get the quote pulled up too.
Yeah,
after we go over this. So.
I'll describe it as you're pulling up the video, Ash. But basically, Tyler didn't get a whole lot of playing time until the second half of a game, and he seemed to play really well once he got in there. So the natural question in the post game, and forgive me, I don't remember who we were playing against. Somebody in the comments may remember.
Getting out too.
Whoever it was, I just remember wondering, where's Tyler Johnson? Then he comes in the second half and he plays more. So somebody naturally asked him about it in the post game, and here's his response. I'm sure y'all have heard it, but we're going to listen again.
I probably shouldn't tell you this. We didn't have the tights that he wanted.
Pause.
So he didn't know if he wanted.
Did you say pause?
No, I mean, he's like, I probably anytime anybody says, I probably shouldn't tell you this, anytime somebody tells you, I probably shouldn't tell you this, you should probably just shut the hell up.
All right, here we go.
Let's hear it.
You ready for this? I probably shouldn't tell you this.
Ready for
We didn't have the tights that he wanted, so he didn't know if he wanted to play. Oh, yeah. You heard it. We didn't have the tights that he wanted, that we've never had for him, and he decided, I don't feel like I can go. That's what young people do.
Jesus Christ.
So,
oh, yeah.
My biggest issue with the quote, obviously it looks silly, so it's kind of funny, but it's really not. If you really think about as a Louisville fan, it's not funny. It's hilarious to other opposing fan bases, but
yeah, could you imagine if
trying to make a joke out of it at his expense to kind of let himself off the hook, almost like, I would have played him, but let me tell you what this goofy guy did, like. And it's like, it's one of your players, man.
Yeah,
like,
don't be. Yeah, that's a bad
kind of thing that like you keep to yourself. Like you don't share that publicly in the media. And the way he was like, "Oh yeah, you heard me right." Well, like yeah, the looks weren't because of Tyler doing that. The looks were because you were talking about it.
Yeah,
and throwing him under the bus. That's why the looks were that way. So that one is hilarious, but it's in a sad way. It's like he did not read the room, which is a common theme throughout this tenure.
I think, you look back on that, I think Kenny, and this is kind of a defense, but not really. It's probably actually going to make him look worse. But I think he thought, hey, guys, I've seen press conferences with coaches. I've seen Cal joke around about players. I've seen Patino joke around about players when he was here. I'm going to joke around about this issue, and people are going to think it's funny, and it's going to help, make this connection with the fans. They're gonna think this is funny. And if you handle this in the right way and word it in the right way, and we're winning basketball games, it could be funny.
Yes,
it could be funny. But the way we lost this basketball game because Tyler didn't play in the first half. I think if I remember, it was a close game. I think we lost this game. I can't.
I don't remember who it was against.
I could be wrong, but
I don't remember who it was against either.
I remember having this feeling like if Tyler played this whole game, we would have had a better outcome. And instead of saying, hey, there was some issues with some tights that Tyler needed to have some support, because it obviously was a injury issue, hamstring thing that he wasn't comfortable with the tights. instead you throw your player under the bus by trying to be funny, but the way you approached it wasn't funny.
Anthony, wait till you see the rest of the list before you think we which, I mean, maybe there are some different things. Like I said, when we rank them, everybody's going to have different rankings. But I also think it's really hard to rank them when you start to see some of the things that have happened that people forget about, because there's just been so many, which is why we wanted to do this in a way.
Yeah. And I mean, just to finish my thought, this is something that like Pitino would have done something similar, but the way Pitino would have worded it, the timing of it, and Pitino would have made sure to cover the thing like, hey, this is funny, but in reality, it's because of support of the hamstring area and stuff, and certain tights feel better than others. But it just was. It was supposed to be funny, but it was not, and it made national news.
Executed well,
and we were the laughing stock, not because it was a funny joke, but because people were like, "I can't believe the coach just threw their player under the bus like that."
Fox News official Twitter account tweeted it. Of course, they made it into like a woke thing, but it was like, good Lord, now it's politicized. Tyler's tights are a political movement. Like, this is awful.
Yeah. Did you have any comments on this, Ross?
Ross is frozen.
Looks like Ross is froze, maybe having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, I mean, this was.
I mean, I realize. I agree that this was the wrong thing to say, and this was a terrible move by him. But I was one that laughed at it too. It was not. It should not have been. It was not a. It was more of like I was laughing at Kenny Payne for having said it, not because he was making a funny joke, in my opinion.
It's kind of cringe, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, can you believe he's saying this? Like, this is ridiculous. Like,
it was Payne.
Yeah, it was Payne. Payne. But anyway,
you got anything to say? I predict Payne. And this season cannot come to a painful end any sooner than we would like. So, but moving right along in our list, we've got number 16 coming up. And on number 16 is kind of contradictory to the whiteboard, hiding recruitments. Kyle, take it away.
So one of the most alarming things I heard was after, of course, this year's UK game, when at the time it looked like he was definitely on the chopping block. So Kenny Payne, I mean, we've got I wanted to prove, we've got the quote up here. So the whole post game was just awful. So the first thing he does on this one on the right on the screen here, it's on the far right. If I'm using Kentucky as a measuring stick, did you see all those All-Americans? Well, I saw them. Yes, Coach Payne, I did see them. And we were told that we were going to be that kind of school that got those kind of kids. So admiring our rival for having them, the same coach and that you used to coach under, that you only want to beat by one, now you're admiring their roster, just came across wrong to me. And then, of course, he talks about, in the middle one there, he talks about the portal. He says, I think, where high school kids can't walk in here and outplay certain guys, we have good players who are young. They're only going to get better. But the next step is to bring in transfer portal guys so we can get over the hump, which, oh, by the way, I use my second favorite team. Mike Woodson uses that phrase, get over the hump, after every single loss. So it's like a running joke. So now to see that he says it too, awful. But talking about recruiting a transfer portal, when people used to get on our pod comments and criticize us for saying we didn't recruit the portal enough. And now you come in here halfway through your second season talking about how you're going to go do that. You're way behind the common fan, and you're the coach. So that wasn't even the worst part. Then you get to the screen on the left, and this was the dagger. He says, he's talking to high-level kids. They want to know, are you going to win more than 4 games? How can I come to Louisville and win 4 games? There's apprehension there. On top of that, the top schools are going after the top transfers, so I have to battle that. I also have to make sure that no one finds out who the transfers we're going after are, because the top schools will go and get them. It's the nature of the beast. So this is the biggest problem I've seen in Coach Payne's tenure. He has never viewed Louisville as a top school since he's gotten here. And I don't understand how, when he won a championship here, and Rick Pitino was our coach just a few years, it was like 7 years ago. But he always came in here acting like he was doing us a favor by being here. And I just feel like he never took the job as seriously as he could have, because, they had all these things happen before I got here. And then, now that I'm here, I didn't get my guys I really wanted the first year. And now it's that top guys or guys go to top schools. So we have to hide that. No, I want a head coach here that walks in the living room and says, we are Louisville. We are a top 10 program of all time. We have NIL if you use the 502 circle instead of just your own little group over here on the side. Why couldn't you use both? I don't know. But anyway, we are Louisville. We have resources. We have a passionate fan base. We have an amazing arena and practice facilities, and we have a storied tradition. And then you know what? You should probably reach out to a couple of recruiting guys. Guess what? We're recruiting these guys, and we're going to get them. We're going all in. Why would you ever try to hide that you are recruiting? Why? You're going to hide from who? Kansas, UK, UNC, IU, Duke? First off, they know who's recruiting them. If you're recruiting a guy, you know everything about them. You know exactly who you're recruiting against and the pitch you're going to use. So right off the bat, you're recruiting scared. You're scared from the belief that you're an inferior program, and you're scared from the belief that a pitch is going to be used against you. Instead of being on offense, he tried to play defense, which, oh, by the way, we don't do on the court, but you certainly don't play defense in recruiting until they're committed.
Yeah.
You play offense until they commit. And we need a coach in here who values our program and recruits and says it with his damn chest. That's all I got.
Yeah. I think, listen, there's a lot of things that are going to be on this top 20.
Trace, you're right. It made me sick to my stomach too. Sorry.
There's a lot of things on this top 20 that are funny. This one sticks out to me as being the least funny. And this was the turning point for me as a fan of, I had some empathy for Kenny Payne, and I could be empathetic to the situation until this. This was the turning point for me. You publicly downgraded the University of Louisville and where we are on the pecking order in college basketball. You said, as the head coach, as a former player, that we are not a top school and I've got to compete with these top schools. That's what you said. Not word for word, but that's what you implied. And that is, I don't care if you're at freaking Eastern Kentucky. You don't say stuff like that.
Right.
You never publicly make your program look worse. You just hurt yourself in recruiting by saying that. You said, hey, all these top guys that I want to recruit, we're not good enough. So you should still go to Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, whatever. And that's when I turned from having some empathy for the man to being like, I'm completely done. I can't even feel sorry for you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was a real breaking point for me too, because coaches generally that are successful generally have a plan and a vision on how they're going to get their program to where it needs to be. And to me, like, this statement made me feel like his roadmap, he was just throwing it out the window, and at this point didn't believe in the path that he had plotted and that kind of thing. So it just made me get kind of like, man, I just don't know if I can stay on this train anymore. Like, if the coach doesn't feel like his plan is working and he's got to completely scrap the vision that he had for the program, I just don't know if I can believe in what he's doing anymore. So this was a real breaking point for me. Moving right along up to number 15 on the list, we are going to have another kind of interesting moment, another red flag moment, because like Ross and I last summer were very positive with the program, and Ross and I were really believing that things were going to turn a corner this season. But this moment should have been another indicator to both of us that things were not on the right track. And at number 15 comes Nolan Smith interviewing for the G League head coaching job. If we had one of our own assistant coaches interviewing for a
picture.
G League job, that's a red flag. Take it away, Kyle.
Yeah, so basically in August, it was reported that Nolan Smith interviewed for a G League job. He was interviewing with the Capital City Go-Go's, and it was supposed to be kept under wraps from everything I understand, and it got leaked. And I have a feeling it got leaked. It says, according to College Basketball Insider Trilly Donovan, which, if you remember, the Mbako recruitment kind of rubbed him the wrong way. So they're a little back and forth with that. And he said he wasn't going to report on anything for Louisville anymore because of the misinformation. And then this is the next thing he finally reported on. So that was interesting to me. But even if that's just coincidence, he reported it. And immediately we're all like, wait, it's late August. In a couple of months, we really start prepping for basketball season. And our assistant coach, arguably our lead assistant, the one who's put in the most work on the staff, might leave. And now October comes rolling around after he didn't get the job. And he claims, he's never serious about leaving. It was pushed out there by people in his camp. He was never going to leave. Okay, then why are you interviewing? Why? At first it was that it was a prestigious can't miss opportunity, but I pulled up all of the NBA G League coaches in the league at the time. And the only one I even recognized was Andre Miller. And that's because he was a former player for the Utah Utes. And Ash, you'll probably remember him. He was really good.
Took him to a Final Four.
The NBA. That's all I remember.
Didn't he play with Keith Van Horn or Nick Novak?
Yes, Keith Van Horn. None of those other guys I never even recognized. This was not some prestigious can't miss opportunity. And the idea, what are you just practicing for interviews? Like, what would be the benefit of just doing it without any intention of taking the position? It just comes across, and I can't prove it, but in my mind, once you didn't get the position because it came down to him and some other guy I've never heard of, and the other guy got the position, and it comes across to me in like hindsight, you're going to turn back around after the fact and be like, well, I never really was serious about it anyway. And if you don't think that created somewhat of a rift, I can't verify how much of a rift, but if you don't think there was a bit of a rift in the program with
right
the players,
before the season, come on,
with the players, with the other coaches, what would he have done if he had to replace you if you took that job?
Yeah, wasn't it August? It was August.
Late August. It was almost September when that happened.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think personally. I think, we're talking about the chicken and the egg here. I don't think the rift was caused by this. I think the rift existed, and that is why this happened.
You're probably right.
Listen, and I am one of you. I'll talk about it in the Discord. I think Nolan has his faults. I think he could stay off of social media more and try not to interact with the fans as negatively as he does. I understand why he does it, but I think as you grow and mature in this industry, you got to stop that stuff. But I think Nolan can be an asset to a college basketball team as an assistant.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think Nolan got to this summer and he was tired of getting these recruits in the door, like Ross and I theorized earlier. Yep. He left, and it can be argued whether he was pushed out at Duke or whatever. He left Duke to come here and it was a step up because he was going to be the third assistant at Duke, and he's probably the second assistant behind Manning here. But he left, taking that chance to further his career. And I think he realized last summer, I have not furthered my career here. This is a black eye on my resume. And I think he laid some of that blame on Kenny Payne.
Absolutely.
And he said, I've got to get out of here. Now, did he handle it the right way? That's to be argued.
I don't think he handled it inappropriately, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think that's what I think. I don't think the rife was because of this. I think the rife is what caused Nolan Smith to interview with the G.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you, Pat. That's kind of where I'm at. I think Nolan was doing his part in what was laid out to him, and then he was doing his part, and there were no goods, there were no results to be shown for his work, which is a negative reflection on him. So, I think he has a really good repertoire and relationship with Kenny, and I think he believed that Kenny would be able to close these guys. I think what ultimately we learned is that some of those old relationships that Kenny was possibly banking on did not come through for him, and they let him down. So, and ultimately that had a cascading effect all the way down the line, because again, like I said earlier, getting talent is 9/10 of the game. And, we definitely upgraded in talent this year, and yeah, there's problems, but this roster could still be a whole hell of a lot better. And it's a lot easier to look better as a coach the more talent that you have. So,
yeah. And, it's like, this just didn't pretend to, this just should have been a red flag for us, Ross, over the summer when we were still pretty positive with the team. The things weren't all right within the program. So I'm really disappointed in myself for overlooking this red flag.
I saw it. I'll be honest.
We were both saying a lot of optimistic stuff at that point still.
Yeah.
And defending a lot at that point still too. So, but anyway, moving right along, we'll proceed to the 14th item on the list here. And ranking number 14 on our top 20 list here tonight is the Trenton Flowers saga. And Kyle, I'll let you kind of break it down and introduce this segment a little bit.
Yeah, so Trenton Flowers, here we are. We're talking all about this freshman class incoming, and I kept it quiet because I know exactly how it would have been perceived, but I had been hearing that their camp was not always on the same page as everybody else's camp in regards to all of the incoming players. I remember hearing, and this is before it came out after. Like, I know after he left, a lot of this came out, but I was heard that there was a little bit of diva-ish drama going on, and that he kind of did his own thing in workouts. Like,
you weren't the only one that heard that.
The group workouts, he was, not really around the team as much, but that wasn't common knowledge, and it's something I just kind of hoped was not true. Obviously, if I would have brought it up back then, they would have been, well, you're just trying to be negative and trash this great class because you don't like Coach Payne and all that stuff. So I didn't, and I just hoped it wasn't true. And then one random day, I'm on a break at work, and I'm scrolling Twitter and our Discord, and there it is, Trenton Flowers to the Australian Outback in August. On August 14th, he left for Australia's NBL League. Claimed he was going to be a point guard, which that was part of the problem. I argued forever that he was a small forward being wedged into a two guard position. Well, apparently two guard wasn't even good enough. He wanted to run the point. So he leaves the team in August, a very vulnerable time. There we are. Our star freshman, he's gone. And then the next thing you know, 2 weeks after he gets down there, they moved him to small forward. The team moved him to small forward. After they guaranteed he play point guard, he did so bad. So just imagine how that would have went here. He'd probably still be playing point guard or shooting guard. Anyway, it was a big. To sum it up, it was a big problem because it was arguably the biggest addition in the freshman class, and we lost him.
Yeah. I think
not all that's on the staff, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think looking back on this, if you look at this recruiting more closely, I think the red flags with Trenton Flowers were there. I think a lot of teams that were recruiting him stopped recruiting him because of his camp and that diva mentality. And like you said, this isn't all on the staff. This was kind of a questionable move by the Flowers. And like you said, they went over there. They got enticed to go over there because he thinks at his height and he thinks he has the skill set that he's going to be the next 6'7" point guard in the NBA that can do all this stuff. And they immediately found over in Australia that, well, that wasn't going to happen. And I'll tell you, even since he's moved off of that, the guy is averaging 5 points over there. His minutes go from 2 minutes to 14 to 23 minutes. I'm not sure this was the best move from him. And I'm saying that with the fact that I'm not sure Kenny's the best talent developer out there. So this is a little bit of both, but it's alarming from our standpoint that a kid that you highlighted in your recruiting class makes it almost all the way through summer, about to the season, and then ditches you. That is a rare occurrence in college basketball. And like you said, it's a red flag that kind of is up there with our last one. That should have been like, what the heck's going on here? There's no control in this program if stuff like that's happening.
Right.
I will say this is one of those things that I'm very, very critical on the staff about, because I listened to what they told me the mission statement was this offseason, and you look at what they were selling us, and they were selling us this offseason about, we're bringing in a different type of player. We're bringing in a player that high character warrior, like that was something that was talked about often. I know the Spirit Children gets, mocked and made fun of, but they were bringing in higher character guys, and that we were told that repeatedly, that we were going after a different type of player. So then when I start hearing that Trenton Flowers has this injury and he's not participating in team practices, but then he's putting out all these, we saw him, all these videos of these
dribbling on cones,
all these skill drills that he's doing. Like his teammates had the exact same feeling. Like, what the hell is going on? He's telling us that he can't practice with us. He can't go through all the stuff that we're going through. But then we're seeing he's putting out all these drill videos. It's like we just got used. Yes. We got used.
We were placeholders.
And so in that regard, that was a miss on Kenny Payne in that regard, that you missed on a player. You told us that you were bringing in high character players, and this dude was obviously not a team first kid. Not at all. His camp wasn't, and whether you knew or not, you decided to roll with it, and it did not pay out. It did not pay any dividends at all, and it bit us royally in the rear end. I mean, awful.
Well, and we haven't even mentioned, and this is something I don't think any of us knows personally, but it's been mentioned that he also took his NIL payment.
That's what I heard as well. Yeah,
didn't give it back, and I didn't play a game here. which adds to the craziness. I think,
Wow.
the Trenton Flowers should be a lesson to parents and handlers across the nation that, hey, you don't always know what's best for your kid. And I'm not saying that staying at Louisville is the best thing, but they were out. To them, Trenton was a ticket to something, and it was going to the highest bidder. It wasn't about who's going to develop my son and what's the best for his pro future. They thought they knew the best, and the best was get the money right now and go to wherever he's promised to be able to do what we want him to do.
He's a ticket. He's a ticket.
Yeah.
He's a meal ticket.
This is a case that, and I said it when this happened, that I actually put this a lot on the coaches.
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is because when you make a conscious decision on which players you're going to go after really hard and which guys you are going to offer to be a part of your program, part of that whole process is not just looking at what kind of player they are and how they fit with your team, but also evaluating their character and their personality and how that's going to fit with your team. And if you don't do a good enough job and they end up not being loyal to the program, well, that's on you for having recruited a person with that type of character and personality.
Yep.
So I put a lot of this on the staff for having not done their due diligence with Trenton Flowers when they recruited him. So that's been kind of my take on this situation from day one. And I don't think I can say it any differently. So if anybody doesn't have anything else to say regarding Trenton Flowers, we'll just move right along. And moving up to number 13 on our list of the top 20 blunders of the era. Number 20 is Kenny failing to add to his coaching staff in a timely manner.
Number 13. Yeah, no, he failed to add. The NCAA came out with guidelines where they added 2 additional assistant coaches to each staff. You could hire 2 extra ones. And we did not look outside our university and make hires. We just left those positions, and I don't know if we promoted from within or we just didn't fill the positions.
I think I don't know.
I couldn't find that answer when I looked, but either way, we did not want to add to our staff that stunk last year.
Yeah, I think Milt was promoted to a bench spot. I'm not sure what the other bench spot was doing.
So yeah, we just promoted from within, and and that lines up with the best staff in the country comment that he made at the end of last season after the last game of the season, and he doubled down on that. They add 2 additional staff positions, and all he does is move people up and move people over. He doesn't go outside of the current. Like, you would think there would be a thought, like, we just went 4-28. We really need to work on some things. We need to improve. The thought was always the same, was these guys, which half of them on that, by the way, the guys that left first were guys that Coach Payne recruited into the program, like Devin Reed. So let's just get that out of the way. But number 2, he always acted like all these guys were just thrown onto him, and that, that was the only problem there was, and that once he got this new roster in here, everything would be great. A lot of us never bought it. I certainly did not. And then, that actually explains why he didn't add anybody from outside, because that was never the problem. So, yeah, Ty Elliott says Milt was promoted from director. Oh, yeah, okay. I thought he was actually talking about a real position. So, yeah, but Milt was apparently promoted. It's just all these other staffs I heard about added additional coaches because they took advantage of an opportunity. We didn't, which that's the story of Coach Payne's tenure, not taking advantage of things, not being proactive, and thinking it all comes down to just your roster, and that's it.
Yeah, and there's not much I can add to that. I think it's a self-awareness issue. If you think about it, if I'm Kenny Payne and Kenny Payne's position, I won 4 games my first year. And the NCAA has just given me a lottery ticket to hire 2 new people that can help me fix that problem. And I took that lottery ticket and I tore it up and threw it in the trash. When it was evident, and this is the self-awareness, that I needed someone to help me with the tactical part of the game. I needed a bench coach that was going to help me with stuff. And the NCAA gave you that opportunity, and you didn't take it.
Yep. I think Ross is frozen again.
Oh. Ross, are you there?
There he is.
I'm still here. The solar flare ain't got me. I really don't have anything to say about this. I mean, it's
pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, y'all have hit on it, and you know, it's something that I was looking back. This is one of those things that I was more forgiving than I probably should have been. This was a red flag. It was almost 4 weeks before we had any staff named. And the lack of sense of urgency that we saw when you know, hindsight being 2020 is alarming. It's absolutely alarming.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't have too much to add on to this from what you guys have kind of summarized the point pretty well, in my opinion. But moving right along to the number 12 point on our list is Kenny Payne going to Africa. And Kyle, I'll let you kind of explain further a little bit about this. I'm sure most people understand what we're talking about here. But then we have an article that Kyle had sent to me earlier in the day. I'm going to get that pulled up too.
It's just wild because of the timing. So here we are. It's April 6th when this happens, or at least that's when the article comes out. So it was sometime right then. That's like in the peak of the transfer portal. And if you remember, this was the year where we were kind of hoping, okay, he's in the second year of the portal. You know, all these people hyped it up that he was going to hit the portal really hard this time, and I didn't buy it. But it already started off kind of rough. And at this point, I don't even know if Trey White and I think Sky Clark had committed. I don't think Trey White had yet. And there was a lot of people that, you know, were waiting, myself being one of them, that, you know, who are we going to land? Okay, we're in the middle of the peak part of the portal season, which you got to remember is like 2 months. Now it's down to 45 days as of this offseason. But I think it was 2 months. And we're like a month through it almost. And I'm thinking we've really got to hit this hard. I'm seeing all these other programs that are getting these big players. I'm not seeing our name coming up for hardly anybody. And what's Coach Payne do? He goes to Africa. He goes to Africa in the peak of portal season and lands nobody. And you got to remember, Manny was already on the team. So I heard somebody say, you know, he got Manny. No, he didn't. Manny joined in like December or January
of the previous
season. So he went there to see Churchill Abbas, who now plays for DePaul, decided he didn't want him, came back with nothing. So to me, it was a complete and utter waste of time. Now, he can say he learned a lot about this or that he got our name out there to some people, but we didn't land anybody from it. He literally went, Ross did his Kenny Payne impersonation of going to Africa, and this is what Coach Payne did when he got there.
I don't want you for Louisville basketball.
Didn't want anybody, and then he came back home like nothing happened. I don't understand it.
Listen,
so high on this list.
I'm gonna get in on this. And I'm going to chime in. I'm gonna add to this because this was one of those moments where I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" Okay,
yeah, like what?
I don't have a problem going to a foreign land and going and recruiting a player like Churchill Abbas. I have a real problem in the timing of it.
Yes.
If you remember, the EYBL was in Louisville. It was in Louisville.
Yes.
So DJ Wagner, Dillingham, Bradshaw, all these dudes were literally playing 2 miles from your campus, not even that. And you went to Africa at that exact time. That couldn't have waited a week. You couldn't have done anything else. Like the the timing is so bad, and I think it's one of those things that goes back to like what Pat and me have been saying. Like, no one had gotten us in the door for these dudes, and then you're just shitting on the work that he's done. I mean, there was nothing to be said. I'm pretty sure Mackenzie Mbaka was there. I'm pretty sure Caleb Foster was there. I'm pretty sure Caleb Green was there. I mean, everybody that was a player was there, and they were in our backyard, and you chose to go thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, all these teams are sending their head coaches, their top assistants, and you're not there. You're not present. We sent Nolan, and that's fine, but it is so damning. It's so damning. Like, it makes no damn.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got a question for you. Are you sure that when DJ and them came to Louisville, it was in April? And the only reason I ask is because I actually questioned that and looked it up. And I just don't want people to run and be like, well, they've got that part of it wrong. And they're just adding fuel. Like it says here, it was on May 28th, like that the EYBL thing happened. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's true or not, Ross. I just questioned it in my head, so I looked it up.
I know that I could have swore that Kenny was not there when they were here in town.
He might not have been. I don't know if that's during the Africa trip. It's the only, and I don't bring that up. Any other reason is somebody else later is going to say, they're not even checking their stuff. And I looked because I questioned it in my mind. I thought it was towards the summer as well, when the DJ and all them came into town. Because I feel like April was just really early. That's why I looked it up. I think the Eric Crawford article, it says May 28th. But my issue with it was, even if whether it's true or not with the EYBL, you were in the middle of the peak of transfer portal season.
The transfer portal season was the problem.
Well, and that was the transfer portal was obviously what we needed to attack in this offseason. At that point,
and Ty Elliott says it was the offseason before with the EYBL as well. So that's important to throw in there.
At that point, you've gotten, I think at that point, like, you had Flowers was not committed, I don't think, but, the signs were that he was going to come. Evans, the signs were there. So you needed to start filling in that freshman class with some upperclassmen. Mm-hmm. And listen, this is kind of like the Justin Perez thing, where it wasn't like fan fiction. This was another thing where prominent media members were saying, hey, this was a great decision by Kenny, because not only is he going over there to watch Churchill Abbas, but Kenny is making inroads with NBA Africa, and Louisville is going to be the it destination for these African recruits. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you come out this year, and there was some ballers over there. I mean, there was some guys that are top. I think there's a guy that's top 15 in this class.
Yeah.
But he didn't even look at us, and I think he just committed somewhere else. I remember reading about him. So again, it was this fiction of and defense of Kenny's going to Africa, and maybe Churchill Abbas isn't that great, or maybe he doesn't land him, but you
got to give us something, because it's in the middle, and that's the Desmond's point. Like, what's wrong with him going to? There's nothing wrong, Desmond, with him going to Africa. The problem is he did it in the middle when we desperately needed transfer.
The timing, and it gave us zero time, and zero dividend.
Nothing.
Well, and if you read that one of the articles, I don't know if it was the article we had up, it mentions that he was the only head coach to go over there, which
Right, because they're all recruiting the portal.
Right. And so some people might say, well, that's a good thing. He's showing, but again, just like Kyle just said, the reason he was the only head coach over there was because everybody else was concentrating on the portal and filling in their class for this year with, the upperclassmen class, and which is what we desperately needed, man.
We needed, that was what we had, some freshmen lined up. And so that's when I thought he's going to crush the portal and give us a fighting chance. And then he did that. And if he at least came back with, like you said, that top 15 guy, I'd say I'd still be annoyed, because I'd say, well, we need portal guys. He just added more young guys. But it was worse because he came back with nothing. And we still haven't seen any concrete proof that specific trip did anything to add to the Louisville basketball program in a positive way. It just seems to me like, and I don't know if that was, I'm assuming that was on our recruiting budget. That's a pretty pricey bill if it was, I'm assuming, going all the way over there, and then we got nothing out of it. But anyway, we can go ahead, unless Ash, you got something. I didn't know if you already.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, like Patrick brought up the whole NBA complex and everything over there. And I did think at the time that, hey, this might be a good thing to get inroads with. I thought the timing was suspect, but I was really hopeful that him developing relationships would pan out in something for us, developing those relationships over there at that NBA center or complex or whatever at the time. But then nothing's really come of it. So it seems like it all turned out to be a bust and just kind of a waste of time, really. But we'll just move along to our 11th point on the list tonight, which is our final one that we're going to do tonight. Make sure you tune in next week for the top 10 on our list. Today we just did our top, our 11 through 20 on the top 20 list, and next week we'll unveil the 1 through 10 on the list. But number 11 on the list will be no strength coach hired until 6/28 of 2022.
Yeah, this to me was a big one. And I felt like all of the hires for assistant coaches were too slow, except for Nolan Smith, who was in the tournament. It seemed like everybody knew Nolan Smith was coming to Louisville, and Duke just kept winning and kept winning. But the assistant coaches beyond that, I know they tried to get Yasser Roseman. He said no. He wanted to stay at IU. They tried to get, I believe they tried to make a run at Jarence Howard. He said no, which he's probably a Nike guy, I assume, still. I don't know that, but I know he used to be. He says no. He decides to stay. And so then we just keep going down the list. We finally get our assistants in place. Seemed like we got a late start on that. But for a long time, we had no idea who our strength and conditioning coach was. And it took Coach Payne over 3 months to get a strength and conditioning coach. And he finally got Adam Petway in here. Over 3 months, though. Like that, over the offseason, your strength and conditioning guy needs to be really getting your guys used to the program that your new coaching staff is going to run. You need to be doing individual workouts and activities. But that strength and conditioning coach usually has a set regiment and program. He basically started in July.
Yeah, I mean, in the off season, the strength and conditioning coach is the most important coach on the staff, probably in the off season, because you can't practice you've got practice rules and stuff. So getting people in shape, working on their body, that's the most important thing for the off season. Sorry, Kyle.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just going to say, like, it's very important, and you need to get them in sooner rather than later, because he was hired on March 18th. I just looked it up. He was hired on March 18th. So you went over 3 months. That's too long. And that was a big initial red flag to me, because I'm hearing all these great things he's going to do from people, and the actions never lined up to me with what we were told. It was just a bunch of hype. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, when are we going to get this guy in here? When are we going to get this guy in here? And then finally, at the end of June, like, I almost forgot about it, to be honest, because there were so many issues by then. I'm looking at other things by now. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, Adam Petway was hired. He's our strength condition. Oh, yeah, I forgot. We didn't have one all that time. So that was just a reactive, slow, methodical thing. And I will sum it up with this, and this is our last topic anyway. I will sum it up that this here encapsulates a lot of the issues under Coach Payne, where you start out with your best foot forward. And if you don't start out strong, it would be like if you meet a woman and you get married and you convince her you're going to be a hard worker, this and that. And within a first week of being married and moving in together, you're like sitting on a couch playing video games and you don't have a job. And you're like, I'm going to get one. I'm going to fill out my resume, send it in. I got some places in mind. Like right off the bat, the wife's going to be like, well, my God, you were supposed to at least pretend like you're a hard worker. You should at least have some sort of job and be presenting this false sense of effort before, maybe a couple of years down the road, you start to let your hair down and, your real tendencies show through. But like, no, we got it right off the bat. Like from the moment he left the podium after his motivational press conference.
Have you bleeped yourself?
It just from that moment on, it was like one thing after another, and this was a big one.
Yeah. I think that this is like you said, this highlights what has been wrong in this Kenny Payne era. It's reactive instead of being proactive, and I think this is one where the consequences were evident. You look at somebody. I mean. Example number one, Sidney Curry. He goes from this guy who is in shape, a specimen, and dominating. We weren't great at the end of the Mac era and when Pegues was coaching, but the one person that was great was Sidney Curry. And it was because he was in great shape and had the motor and the conditioning and strength to play high-level college basketball. Then you get him, and he's obviously a guy that needs that discipline, needs that strength and conditioning coach to stay on top of him. Well, we don't have one for 3 months, and he comes out the next season. He's out of shape, and he's a completely different player. And that's only one example. I thought last year, to begin the year and throughout the year, we were not a well-conditioned team. And that all goes back to your strength and conditioning coach. And it's like I said earlier when I interrupted Kyle, in the football program, in the basketball program, in the off season, when you can't practice and there's limits on player interactions with the coaches, the most important person on your staff is the strength and conditioning coach. And we did not have one for 3 months. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing, what we keep harping back on, and it's a reoccurring theme, is like a lack of it's a lack of what's the word I'm looking for? Y'all help me out.
Ross.
My COVID brain went blank there for a second. You have to excuse me. It's a lack of sense of urgency. That's the word. That's the term I was looking for. And it occurs. You look at the 2 years that it's been the case, and that comes back over and over and over and over. And I will say, to hit on your point, Pat, I took pictures with me and my son with Sidney Curry, at the U of L spring football game, right around when Kenny was hired. And he was in great shape. And then for me to see him come August, September, I was like, man, this is a completely different guy. I mean, he looks completely different. And, some of that's got to go on the player, because you need to push yourself. But these still are like kids, and, they need direction and
structure.
Yeah, they need structure and they need direction and they need discipline. And Sydney definitely was one of those that needed that and didn't have it, and the program let him down. No way around it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have. I mean, you guys summarized again that point pretty well. I don't have anything else to add to that particular point on our top 20 list. I hope everybody's enjoyed what we've unveiled so far in 11 through 20. Hope everybody tunes in again next week so we can unveil that top 10. I'm sure there's going to be some spirited comments regarding that. Yeah, hit that like and subscribe button on the episode and on the channel. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this episode. Also, give us your feedback on what you think is maybe your top moments as far as the blunders as far as the tenure. Go ahead and comment in the in the comment section below the video to let us know what your thoughts are. Maybe your top moment of the tenure as far as the most the biggest blunder of Kenny Payne's era so far at U of L. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you happen to just tune in for the first time on our channel, make sure that you do hit the notification button so that you know when we're going live in the future. Tomorrow night, we have a very special episode.
Real quick, before we get to that, Larry, I just want to say prayers up for you, for your brother who's in the hospital. I hate to see that, man. Thoughts and prayers, man.
Yeah, good vibes your way, Larry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely want to share, thoughts and prayers there as well. But I just wanted to hype up. Ty has a smarter than the fifth grader trivia tomorrow night. So another episode of our Fun Friday feature here on the Third Banner Pod. So thank you, Ty, for putting that together. Looking forward to competing. Hopefully, I'll get off the schneid and fare a little better than I did at Wheel of Fortune.
I won't be on this one, but I'll hopefully be watching from somewhere. I'm taking the wife out on a date tomorrow. You got to.
Who else is?
I can't go on dates with you guys every Friday night.
It's me and Ty, and who else? Ross, are you on that?
Connor.
It's
are you smarter than Connor, actually? So
are you smarter than Connor?
That's probably a step below a fifth grader, so it should be easier.
Oh, Connor's always catching some strays.
I know, man. It's done for me though, so I can't say too much. Guys, another thing before we sign off tonight, baseball is really struggling. 9-1 loss to Xavier. Lost 2 games last weekend to UConn and Indiana State, which those 2 losses aren't anything to be ashamed of. Indiana State making the super regionals last year and that kind of thing. So, but I don't know, guys. We are forecast to be 5th in the division, not just the conference, in the division preseason, and then dropping the first 3 games like this, especially 9-1 to Xavier. A little bit of red flags right now with Coach McDonald's program. So, yeah, Ross, have you checked them out at all?
Yeah, I'm planning on getting a better in-person, in-depth look here soon, but it's not the normal trend that we're used to seeing, and it's problematic.
Yeah. It's a lot of the same stuff that failed us last year. Our bullpen in the first 2 games blew those games, and then a lot of there's some base running errors and stuff like that. And I hope we can turn it around, because this is kind of in the McDonald era. This is unforeseen territory. They have 2 years in a row that haven't started out well and don't. Well, and actually, last year started out well. It didn't end well. But
yeah, we started top 10 last year and then faded really bad.
No.
But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, they'll turn it around. Steady, and at least have an average season this year. Maybe rebound completely next year. Hopefully, softball can keep it going and playing well this year. But before we sign off, any final words from you, Kyle, tonight?
No, just like and subscribe. Like I said, if you haven't already to our channel, we've got 1 through 10 on these same, mishaps of the Kenny Payne tenure. We got that next week. I'm sure we'll have more updates as well. Again, Are You Smart in the fifth grader? Ty Elliott's going to be leading that charge tomorrow night at 9:00. So if you can, if you're not busy, feel free to show up, play along. That's like an audience feedback thing too. Like we like the audience to be able to play those game nights because they're all Louisville centered. And so all the questions, all the games we play are centered around Louisville trivia. So, if you get into that kind of stuff, check us out. That's all I got, guys. And we got better days ahead.
What do you got,
Absolutely.
Pat? Final words.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of piggyback off of what Kyle said. This Friday night stuff is new, and hopefully, people will tune in. And Ty puts a lot of effort into it. And listen, man, I know I lost, and I know I went bankrupt about 10 times last week, but I did, and it didn't look like it, but I had a lot of fun. So, yeah, tune in tomorrow for that. I think you guys in the audience will have fun.
Oh, it was funny.
Ross, final words. Take us home.
Hey, you already know. Go Cards, go Kroger.
By the way, Ross, did you see on Wheel of Fortune that was one of the questions?
And that Ash answered it.
It said, this is a catchphrase of Ross's, and it was all blank. And Ash goes, oh, I know it. It's go Cards, go Krogering. And he said it before anybody.
No letters were on the board yet.
He solved it with no letter, which we all knew it. Anyway.
Damn straight. Go Cards.
I've never seen somebody solve a Wheel of Fortune puzzle without anybody even getting a turn. It was just making our own rules up on the third.
It wasn't even me to go first either.
No.
It was Pat's turn.
And I knew it, but of course
we all knew it.
I went bankrupt on my first roll. So.
Oh, yeah, Captain Hampton,
for that.
Nice of you to join us.
Boom, 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 boom.
All right, guys. Go Cards.
Go Cards.
Go Cards. Go